Hi guys.
Bro, forward me the email. Oh my.
Any closed windows? Yo. Hi everyone, can you see my screen? Can you see my screen?
Yeah, we can see that.
Alright, thank you. Alright, we will start in a few minutes. Oh, alright, I think we are good to start. Khan, would you say so? Khan?
Do we know if we're expecting anyone else?
I don't believe so.
Someone just said yes.
Yes? Alright. Jason, you.
I just wait for them.
Okay, we'll wait like another 3 minutes. So by the way, there's 3 of us, me, Surya, and Khan. We're gonna be hosting this workshop today. There's 3 parts to it. There's 3 hours. Here, let me go to the next. So we're doing an introduction this hour, building a calculator the next hour, and advanced Java the next hour. These times might be changed, because of our delayed start. All right. All right. All right. I'll start at 2:10. All right, we got one more person to join. All right, so I'm going to put the link. Well, let's start now. I'm going to put the link for the slides if you want to access them. I'm going to put it in the chat now. Uh, what screen can you guys see? Can you guys see my whole screen or just the presentation?
Just the presentation.
All right, good. Okay, I'm going to put the link in the chat now. You all can follow along if you want. There will be a few links that you guys can click on. All right, so let's start. So this is our Java workshop. I'm Veer.
I'm Surya.
And I'm Khan.
All right. So this workshop can be divided into 3 parts. The introduction to Java, the building the calculator, and advanced Java. It's not like very advanced Java. It's just building on what we learned from the calculator. All right. So in this segment, in this hour, we're going to be learning how to write our first program, basic Java syntax, variables and data types, loops and conditionals. All right. So, Khan. Khan.
Yeah?
All right, go this slide.
You want to go next to the next slide?
I am. I'm on setup. All right, so we are going to be
Wait,
using
we don't see setup. I don't see setup on your shared screen. Is
Oh,
your
did
screen
the
frozen?
slides not change?
Oh, yo, you're still on the introduction, but
Oh, is it still an introduction? Oh, and my share screen died. All right, 1 second. Sorry, guys. All right, can you guys see it now?
Yeah.
All
All
right,
right.
so
You want me to go?
yeah.
All right. So for the purposes of this workshop, we recommend using REPL just because there's a share feature, and that way we're able to kind of see your screens and maybe help you. If you have your own IDs that you're comfortable with, then you can feel free to use those as well.
Khan, where'd you go?
Wait, you guys can't?
no, I can hear him.
Can everyone hear me? Did everyone just hear what I said?
We can hear you.
Okay, so for the purpose of this workshop, it'll make it easier for us to help if you use REPL. So you can go ahead and make an account and then make a Java project there. And then if you'd like, you can share it with us just so we can take a look at how it's going for you guys.
All right, so um, now we're moving on to the main method slide. So the main method is shown right here, and it's pretty important to any Java program that you're going to make. Basically, all of them have to have a main method, and this is the first thing that runs. So for this course, we're going to be putting all of your code inside of the main method because it's an introductory level course. But in more complex programs, the main method actually points to different other methods that can be in other classes and stuff. We'll be learning that in the advanced course, but right now we're just putting all of our code in the main method, and we're not pointing to anything else outside of the main method.
All right, so the next thing is going to be data points. All right, so in this example, sorry about that. So for this one, I have a variable, and it's called age, and it's set to 16. All right, so whenever we're coding, we use the variable age to refer to the number 16. We'll get to what this part is later. So there's two types of data. There's two types of data that we have in Java: primitive and non-primitive types. So the relevant types of data for our workshop today will be a Boolean. A Boolean is a true or false value, a double, and an int. An int is an integer, like you see here. So those are all whole numbers, and doubles are
Just speak into this now. Literally just like unplug your AirPods and
Wait, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
All right. Wait, could you guys hear any of that?
Yes.
All right. So we have booleans, which are true or false values. We have doubles, which are, and we have doubles and integers. So doubles. So doubles are numbers that have decimals, and integers are ones with only whole numbers. And then we also have non-primitive data types. For our purposes, we're only going to be doing strings for this hour, and they can only hold alphabetical characters. So they can hold words and sentences.
Oh wait, but they can also hold numbers technically, but you can't perform any like operations on them. Like, so if you have like, I don't know, hack 3, the 3 is still a string, but you can't like add or subtract or perform any operations on that.
All right.
I muted myself.
All right, Khan.
All right, so now for some of the things about the basic syntax of Java is that every line ends with a semicolon. That's how you indicate the end of a line, so that means you don't need to do any indenting. Indenting isn't important, but it's good for structure. You also explicitly declare variable types, unlike some other languages. As you can see in those 4 examples, we explicitly state that it's an integer, a string, a doublet, or Boolean, and then you set its value. Also, in your statements, there are curly braces to indicate what is inside that statement, that loop, or that if statement. If you can also have it an inline statement, but if you have multiple lines in any statement or loop, you have to use curly braces. And also, your conditionals will be contained within parentheses. So that's just some of the basic things about how the Java syntax wants you to write Java.
So we'll be learning what an if statement is later.
All right. So the next thing is printing to the console. So basically, any program you open up on Replit will start out with system.out.println hello world. So basically, that's just going to create a new line on the console and just print hello world. And there's also something called system.out.print, and that just doesn't create a new line and prints hello world on one line. So if I was to put system.out.println hello world 2 times, so 2 lines of code, I would get hello world, new line, hello world. But if I was just to do system.out.print, I would get hello world, no new line, and then I would get hello world again. So that's basically how you print out to the console in Java.
The console is important if you want to do debugging or you want to know like the value. All right. So the next thing we're going to be talking about is making comments. So if you want to share code with your friends, like the next hour, we're going to be making a calculator. So for the next hour, because we're making a calculator, we have to share the code, right? And we want to know what, how we are all making the code and what each part of it does. So if you put in 2 slashes, forward slashes, the compiler or Java or the computer will ignore whatever you put after that until the next line. So here you have a variable called is vir cool me, and it's a boolean and it's set to true, right? So the comment comes after that. So we have there's more things about comments. So let's say you have a whole code block, like this is our code block. There's something called a multi-line comment, right? So those start with a forward slash and a star. You can put anything you want as long as at the end you put another star and a forward slash. That'll end the multi-line comment. So anything you put in between will be ignored, and you can share this code with other people, and it will run. I hope you like my poem. All right. So something. The reason we use comments are, like I said, if we want to explain code to somebody else we're sharing it with. Also for debugging. So debugging is obviously when we write our codes, it won't always be 100% correct the first time, right? So if we want to know what's wrong with our code, maybe there's a faulty line or we want to try different things out. But let's say we don't want to delete something, we just want to know if it's faulty. We can comment it out either in a multi-line comment or in a single line comment. And that way it's not in the code, it'll be ignored, but we can always just get rid of the 2 forward slashes and we can put it back into our code pretty instantly. Or we can write a poem. All right, Colin?
All right, so the scanner class is a component of Java that we're going to be using throughout this workshop that basically takes in. You want to get the slides back?
Yeah.
So it basically takes in inputs from the console. So if you want to interact with the user, let's say I'll take in like a number for our calculator. We're going to have to use the scanner. And in order to be able to use the scanner, you have to have this line that says import java.util.scanner. So at the top of our class, we have a section where you can import. You basically, it'll make more sense once we get more into classes, but you basically need to use a component of the Java library. So you need to say that you're using that. So you have to include an import statement at the very top of your class. So that line that says import java.util.scanner is gonna import the scanner for you. And
So
yeah, go ahead.
scanner is like a part of Java. So it's not there when you actually like write your program for the first time. It's you have to import it because it's like a part of Java, but it's not in your code. It only comes into your code once you write the import statement, and then at that time you can make one of those, and that's how you interface with the user. So user can put an input, like what Con said.
So in order to start using the scanner, you need to make what's called a scanner object. So when we were talking about non-primitive types before, scanner is one of those. It's a type of a class. It's not an actual like integer or double, but you basically create a scanner variable when, in this example, the name of that variable is scan. And then you say equals new scanner, which creates a new scanner object. And then you pass in system.in, which is the input stream from the console. So that might not make a lot of sense right now because we haven't learned a lot about class structure, but when you're starting off, you pretty much just know to write that, and then you'll figure out what's going on in each part of that statement once you get more advanced into classes and stuff. So now that we have a scanner object called scan, scanner has a bunch of functions that you can use. Some of the ones we're going to use mostly are just going to be next line, next in, next double, and then those function calls return whatever string, whatever integer, whatever double the user inputted. And so if we go to the next slide for an example of how we would use the scanner, you can see here that we created that scanner object like we said we would. We create a number variable, an int variable named number, which is going to store what the user inputs. And then you do a system.out.print, meaning it doesn't do a new line. So it says input number, and then the scanner will create a space for them to be able to type in their number since there's no new line. and then you set the integer variable equal to whatever the function call nextInt returns, which will basically just give you whatever the user inputted. So it'll create an input prompt from the number, and then that number will be stored in that integer variable.
All right, so the next thing we're going to cover is if statements. So basically, if statements are useful for checking whether a condition is true, so that'd be a Boolean. So if it's true, we would run the code inside of the braces. Otherwise, we move on to the next case. We'll cover that. So that would be an else if or else statement if they exist. Or we move on to the code that comes after, or we end the program if that's like the last line of code. So yeah, the statements inside of the ifs parentheses are basically check, like those are what you like what you put inside there is what we check if it's true or false. So in the case of like an integer or double, which is a number, we can check for equality using two equal signs. So you might recall that in variables we assigned numbers or like strings and stuff using the equal sign. But in order to check for Java to know to check whether something is true, we use the double equal sign, or we also can use the greater than or less than sign, or we can just put an equal sign after those and make it greater than or equal to, or greater than or less than or equal to. Sorry. So an example is if parentheses condition curly braces action. So whatever the condition is will get checked and then we do the action. So in the first line we do if 1 equals 0, Java checks if that's true. System.out.println 1 equals 0. Obviously that's not true. So we move on to the next statement, else if. So this now checks whether 1 is less than 0 and it prints 0 is greater than, or no, it checks if 1 is, it checks if 0 is greater than 1, and then if obviously that's not true, so we move on. And finally, we have the else statement, and it says 0 is less than 1. So basically, that's how if, else if, and else statements work.
All right, so we have a activity for you guys now. So if you all could go to the slides, I put it inside of the chat. Open up a REPL, and we are going to be doing an activity. So the activity is we need you guys to use a scanner. So like we did here, use a scanner. Have them input a number. So use exactly like this. In this case, you could do input your age. Then we want you guys to use if statements, right? So, like we explained here, to tell the user again if they're an adult or a minor. So, obviously, if it's above 18, you say they're an adult. If you're 0 to 18, then you'd be a minor. And then if it's less than 0, then you would say invalid input. So, let's all try that. Ask any questions if you have any. And yeah.
So you can navigate to like the first slide, or not the first, fourth slide, and just log in with Google, and yeah, just follow the link to a Replit.
And if you want us to be able to see your code, then you can, there's a share button at the top of your REPLs, and then you can paste the link into the chat so that we can pop into your code and then take a look at it. So were you guys all able to create a REPL account and a project? Or are you guys still doing that?
Alright, have you guys made your REPLs? Did you guys all make your REPLs? Can you guys hear me?
Yes, I can.
Were you guys all able to make your REPLs or your replets? You guys can share your screen and then show us what you guys are doing. We can also continue if there's no interest in the. All right, at this point, I think we are going to continue. Colin, can you go to the next slide? All right. So we are going to discuss loops now. So loops are a way to run a certain chunk of code continuously for a certain amount of times or until a certain condition is met in your code. So we have three different types, and we're going to be learning two. Two of them in this hour, and then one in the next hour. So, or one in the third hour. We're going to be learning the for and the while loop this hour.
Wait, I'm skipping years because I don't see.
Can you go to the next slide?
All right.
All right.
So,
So
wait.
I can.
All right, go Con.
Hold on, I'm trying to fix an echo. Alright, so the while loop syntax is as shows. You say while, and then in parentheses you put the condition, and then within the brackets you'll put whatever runs when while that condition is true. So to even enter the loop at all, the condition has to be met the first time, and then it'll keep executing that code until the condition is ever false. So that condition will be checked again at the end of the loop, and if it's become false, the loop will break. If it hasn't, the loop will continue. And so you can put any Boolean statement within the condition, whether that's a Boolean variable or just some condition, something being less than something, something being equal to something. But basically, it's just a block of code that's going to run as long as some Boolean is true.
All right, so this is going to be the for loop. So,
All right, so basically, the for loop is a different kind of loop that's used for, well, it basically functions the same way, but it's organized differently. So we have the initializer. So we initialize the counter variable that will be used in the loop. So usually we end up using an integer, and we just initialize it by saying like int I equals like 0, for instance. So we can initialize it that way. Then we have the condition. So once the variable that we keep incrementing or decrementing reaches a certain point, we check it with the Boolean condition to see whether it's true or false. And once it becomes false, we exit the loop. And then finally, we have the increment/decrement statement. So over here, we just increment or decrement the variable that we initialized in our loop. And usually we end up incrementing it by 1. And in Java, the shorthand way of doing this is just doing I++ or I-. So that either adds 1 to your variable on each iteration of the loop or subtracts 1.
this will make more sense when we get to the example.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So on this example, we have a for loop, right? So this for loop goes through every character in a string and prints it individually. So if we had a string that said one of our names, like Khan's name, it would do K new line A new K new line A new line A new line N. So the way this one works is in the for loop we make a new variable. We called it I, and we do as long as I is less than the length of the word, right? So for Khan's name, it would be 4 letters, right? So as long as I is less than 4, we will keep going with this loop, and every time I will increase by 1. So I starts with 0, right? And then it does system.out.println word.character at, and then it would do 0 since I is equal to 0 in this first time. So it would print the word K, because when we code, the first number is always going to be at an index of 0. It won't ever start at 1. It always starts at 0. So then I will increment to 1 after this loop is done. So now because I is equal to 1, it starts to print out the character that is in the first place in the word. So basically the second letter. So it'll print out an A, and then the next time it'll go through, print another A, and then the last time I will be equal to 3. It'll print out the last letter N, and then when then it'll come back and it'll say, because it'll become 4 again, and it'll say that that 4 is less than 4 is false because 4 is equal to 4. So then it'll exit out of this for loop and run the code after it.
And if you don't understand the word.char at and word.length, don't worry about that. Just understand the basic concept.
Yeah. Next slide.
All right, so that's actually all the content we have for the introduction. So if you guys have any questions or want to try to make a program using the scanner, some of the loops, and maybe the statements, you can go ahead and type in the chat if you'd like to do that, or if you have any questions, we can go over stuff.
Yeah, let's all try to also make those REPLs, and because that was also part of what we were going to do. Can everybody try and make the code that Siddharth made? Or maybe copy out this code and write your own name in it. So make a string variable called word and set it equal to your name, and then print out your name.
And since your name is a string, you have to put it in quotes. All right, so I guess it's just you two guys. So if you guys want to ask questions or something, go ahead. Or if you want to like do a project or something, we can help you out with that. So
Yeah, so try and use the loops. Try and make with the code that Siddharth made. Seeing if the user is a minor or an adult.
all right, so it's just you, Kevin. If you have any questions, you can go ahead and ask us. Otherwise,
He's the recorder, so he's.
oh really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess we're done then. I don't know.
This was a bust.
Bruh.
All right, let's probably end this now, and we can prepare for the next hour, so it goes a little bit better. Probably. We had some technical difficulties this hour.
All right, see ya.